growth process. So how it works? So there are 7 steps. I will talk about every step deeply, and also about most of the steps we have a separate video that I recorded just for you. So growth process, I just go shortly. It's we set the goals, we do the research, we generate the hypothesis, we do the prioritization. Once we prioritize them, we do experiments, then we analyze the results and systematize the knowledge. So just 7 steps, and we just run them, let's say, forever. So start is first, setting of goals. So let's also look my separate video about North Star metric, why we should use it in our company. And so goals are coming from our North Star metrics, from our inbound metrics. For example, we know that mostly our traffic is, let's say, Google or other project. So we understood which metrics we need to use. And also we have our funnel, R funnel. So also look separate video about R funnel if you didn't. And so we choose which metrics we now need to influence to get the maximum result. Also look my separate video about profit formula. And so how it works. So we need to choose which metrics right now it's much better to improve. So you can use your own logic in your business. Sometimes it's not money, sometimes it's conversion, sometimes it could be, I don't know, incoming traffic, sometimes it could be retention. So which metrics you need to work with. So once you choose your goal, so one goal, you do the research. So Lean Canvas also will help you. About Lean Canvas, you can listen my other video. And also, when you're doing research, we research current situation. If it's retention, we analyze everything around retention. If it's, let's say, we don't have enough traffic, so we analyze everything around this. And of course, we do customer interviews. So customer interviews, they always helps us to understand and to do research. And by the way, it's one of the cheapest way how to do research. We don't need to buy data, and we get deep data, deep quality data. So interviews is, by the way, most important product manager work. So then we have when we have the data, we're prepared to generate hypothesis. So how to generate hypothesis also, let's look my separate video. So always how to do it. So we need then, once we generate hypothesis, we need to write them in the same format. The idea is just if we write hypotheses in different formats, it will be very difficult to later to prioritize them, to read them. The idea is just hypothesis, it's your knowledge forever. If you like organize hypotheses very nice and write them very carefully, like very nicely, so it will be very easy for you to read them later. You will save time, and it will be some knowledge left in your brain. Because if you're like, if it's a house here, so it will be house in your head forever. And also, when you generate hypothesis, what is important is to choose hypothesis with a big expectation. For example, if we win this hypothesis, if it's successful, we will increase our conversion, let's say 1% from the title page. So possibly it's good, but it will require for you lots of tests, and it's really not easy. But let's start focusing on conversions that can double or triple your funnels. For example, you just change button. Sometimes you can increase like registration twice. Sometimes you change the title slogan, it will increase you plus 50% of registration. Sometimes you just put some information on the site, or remove some banners to get better conversion. So start focusing on the things that goes easy and produce big results. And by the way, once we run lots of hypotheses, we start doing better expectations. Because we have some experience, so we start. So we start understanding what will be prognosis. So we can prognose much better. So once we have hypotheses, we need to prioritize them. I also talked about ICE method, ICE prioritizing method in my other video. Please look at this. But as we prioritize it, as a hypothesis, we need like team decision to choose a real one. So together with team, we prioritize them and choose best one. And I just one more time remind you that we need same prioritization process in your company. So it will be easier for you, and you will always, once you use the same prioritization method, you will save a lot of energy discussing which hypothesis is better. Once you choose best hypothesis, you need to do experiments. Firstly, you need to choose verification method. Verification method is also in other video, but you can do, let's say, A/B test, A test, ABC test. You can do UX test, you can do corridor test, or like lots of them. But you need to choose verification method. And the method should be to have enough statistics to prove the result. So we need statistically significant methods. We need statistically significant numbers to prove that experiment nice or not. So once we choose a method, we also need to find a responsible person who will do everything. And of course, prepare, run, and get the data. So a small project manager for this growth hypothesis. So what next? We run the hypothesis carefully, we got the results. We analyze the results. Firstly, we need to check if hypothesis finished correctly. Sometimes you start, but you get lots of unexpected traffic and you lose. Sometimes you start hypothesis and other hypotheses provide better results. Sometimes you start hypothesis and some errors provide. So firstly, you need to correctly finish it. Then you need collect result and analyze them. So you collect and then analyze. And then you think how to scale. For example, if it's successful or not a successful hypothesis, you need to understand, do you need to scale it? For example, you did successful test for, I don't know, for one language or for one region. You need to scale it, possibly, or possibly not. By the way, sometimes you run hypothesis for one country, it works, but when you run for the rest of the countries, it doesn't work. So you always need to keep this in mind. And when you choose how to scale, it's also very important. Growth teams do testing. They do experiments. Once they get some proof, when they get proof that some experiments were very successful and you can increase your income, you can do change in product or change in marketing. So like they generate backlog for product or for marketing. Of course, if the hypothesis was about marketing, so it will generate task for marketing. And of course, if the, let's say, some hypothesis was about product, for example, we understood that if we remove some features, nothing happens in the product. So we need to do it. So product team should do it. Yeah, by the way, hypothesis could be also not about creating new, it also could be about removing old features. If we remove old feature, nothing will change. We remove old feature, wow, we don't need to support it. So it's really nice. So we removed feature, we don't need to spend time for this, edit, and so we solve our time and money in the future. And when we analyze the results, the most important thing, not to scale, the most important thing is systematization of your knowledge. So firstly, you need to summarize it for your generations. So firstly, there are three very important things. It's a result. Result is not, it's without opinions. So banner B provide 50% more clicks, but there are no statistical proven for that. Or for example, we plan to, the result was we plan to have 1,000 registrations, we get 1,300 registrations. So it's a result. And very important if we have statistical proof for that or not. Then in result, we need to have knowledge. What kind of knowledge we gain. And by the way, it's most important thing. When we did the result, when we did the test, we get some results. And we need to carefully, very carefully, do the explanation, like which knowledge did we get? Sometimes you can spend like half an hour talking about how to, so we have results, we have numbers, but what kind of knowledge you get? So you need to write this knowledge carefully in one style, so other team members can read them later. And of course, if this hypothesis is successful or not. By the way, 20 or only 10% of hypotheses are successful. So because you do testing, and of course, not all your tests are successful. So can you imagine you run 10 tests, 1 or 2 is only successful. So to do successful things, you need to test a lot. And what is important, why we need to write the knowledge and systematize it? Because some growth hackers, they just run hypotheses, wow, and write nothing. And after half a year, they start testing the same things they did half year before. So no results. So usually when you finish one hypothesis, it also could be like a foundation for other hypotheses. For example, you increase price and sales decrease. Maybe what happens if we decrease price, let's say. And of course, maybe we understand better how we can change some metrics, and maybe our goals change after some knowledge we gain. For example, our loading speed is 3 seconds, and we do not know how to make it better. So we did, instead of 3 seconds, 30 seconds. It's much easier than to do instead of 1 second. So we know that we made that for our customer. It was 3 second loading speed. We made it 30 seconds. And we see that so people didn't leave our service. They still use it. It means speed is not so important as we thought. So instead of 3 seconds, people wait for 30 seconds and they still didn't come out. So it means speed is not an important thing. And we need to write it, and it's change our knowledge. So we know that speed is, of course, maybe important, but not so important, so people leave us. And of course, once we get knowledge, it will change our next process. It will change our next hypothesis. And it's also amazing thing for new members, because also we forget something. Believe me. And also when new members comes to a team, you can send to them, hey guys, just read our hypothesis results. They read, and maybe 1-2 days at the studio, 1 or 2 years, like testing. They get very fast at testing knowledge. And by the way, this testing knowledge works in your company. In other company, could be other testing knowledge. Like in other company, what works for you, not will work for somebody else. It always you need to test as well. So once you systematize your knowledge, you can also start with new hypotheses. So thank you for your time. Let's see next video.